Okay, good evening, everybody. Lots of familiar faces from last time. Appreciate you coming back for round two. If you're not sure where you're at, this is the comprehensive plan presentation number two. We have the OS architecture team here again this evening to give their presentation on some additional findings and present some concepts to you. If you have not signed in, please do so we have record of that. Um, Next up will be another meeting in 2 weeks on August 18th, where we'll have some refined concepts that again we'll present and ask for some feedback. But if you haven't done so already, I encourage you to go to the centralcity.app website. Um, for those in attendance, there's a QR code that will take you directly there, as well as a QR code to fill out the survey. So if you have not filled out the survey yet, please do so. We've had maybe a dozen or so folks fill it out, but some good insights from that already. But encourage you to do so we can collect everybody's thoughts and opinions on some questions that we're asking. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alexander and allow him to introduce his team, and let's get started.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for spending your Monday night with us. I guess a quick personal reflection. Last night or last afternoon, my wife and I attended opera performance, and it was lovely. It was a very nice show, but as we were coming out, and we ran into a number of familiar faces. Eric here and Mr. Mayor and Jeff and other folks. And the town was full of life and full of people. And the reason we do what we do, the reason for comprehensive plan update, in my mind, to keep the place vibrant, to return economic vitality, and to create the situation where the city will not disappear with the sands of time, but will be prosperous and will be preserved. Its historical portions will be preserved for posterity. So this is sort of a quick reflection of why we do what we do. So in 3 set meetings, which we are almost halfway through, this is probably the most amount of data we are going to get through. So bear with us, we'll try to go quickly, but there is a lot of ground to cover. So this is our agenda, skeleton agenda for today, is we'll review very quickly past and future events, and then we'll talk about proposed design concepts. Some of those we introduced. Now we are going to show you what it really means. We'll focus on key recommendations. There will be many, many recommendations. We'll cover key recommendations, and then we'll look at some case studies that deal with historical towns and what we would term as responsible development. And then from protocol viewpoint, for newcomers especially, we will finish our presentation, and if we do it right, it will be less than half of an hour of talking. And then we will take questions from the online folks. And after that, we'll break into 3 groups. And you are all encouraged to pick a group or maybe hopefully pick all 3. But Peter here, who is our preservation specialist, he will be standing in the corner next to 2 boards labeled case studies, and he will chat with you and let you leave notes and answer questions. Blake, who is our project manager for this job, he will be manning the 2 easels next to Peter's. And this is villages. This is parts of your town being expanded. And then we can talk about, or he can answer further questions about recommendations in specific villages. And then Jeff and myself will stay here up front at those 2 easels, and we will take any questions really, but overall vision and concept and protocol is what we would like to cover. Once again, to your left, there is a board with QR code. If you scan it, it will take you to a new website where there is a questionnaire. And we are hoping you will fill out that questionnaire. And again, I repeated it a couple times already at various meetings, is developer consultants come, go, is the population, the town, the community stays. This is your town, and your participation and your comments are very important. We are interested in what you have to say, positive, negative, or otherwise. So please comment, work with us. Public engagement. Very quickly, we did analysis and work sessions, prepared the product. We started our engagement with you, with the community, in meeting 1. This is meeting 2. There is one more. Upon conclusion of the third meeting, we will take your recommendations, analyze them, dice and slice, and then develop the final package that will go through Planning Commission and City Council. And sometime in Q1 of next year, we are hoping to have comprehensive plan approved and become the new law. So that's the process. Public meeting 2 is today. Formal presentation, key recommendations, case studies. Public meeting 3 in 2 weeks. Engineering, infrastructure, roads and transportations. And that presentation we hope will be shorter. So we will leave as much time as we can for your comments and for the dialogue. Concepts and review. Okay, so this is behind me, the map of the city of Central. And for those of you online, hopefully you can see it well. For those of you in the room, it's not particularly large, but we have copies of it. So afterwards, we can sort of debate and deliberate. But is the area, can you see my cursor? This is Central City in its present form. The shaded areas are current expansion zones or expansion potential, and is from viewpoint of area assembly, the current Central City is just over 800 acres. And some of the additions would bring another 500, give or take. So it's a fairly substantial growth. And the idea that was already introduced, it's an idea of villages. The town is steep, the pedestrian and other alternative mode of transportation traffic is not particularly easy or straightforward. One of our hopes and desires is to develop network of pedestrian, bicycle, and other wheeled non-motorized traffic connections between various parts of town to make it easier navigable. So this is the concept of villages and proposed land use. So this is the map, same map that we saw of the town. And the areas that are black and white are what we call areas of stability. We are not proposing significant changes, maybe some nuanced changes to comprehensive planning. However, the areas that are colored are slated as areas of growth and areas of change. And those various colors represent villages. And here at the bottom of the page, you can see enumeration, tabulation of those villages. And is within city limits and outside city limits. All in all, the area of change engulfs some 600 acres of land. is and that is, if we go back to the larger map, that yellow shape is Eureka Valley Range. And that was previously contemplated as addition and incorporation into the city. And this image is zooming in on the core area of the city and some neighborhoods or some villages that are slated to, and some already started, process of change and improvement. And again, same square footages are listed here. The next series of slides, we are going to go one by one over villages of the cities and talk a little bit about their character and potential changes to the character. So this is our jewel of the city. It's our central business district, our street of culture, Eureka, and avenue of commerce, Main Street. And you can see that there is not a lot of change or revisions that anticipated. Some diversification of the utilization of upper levels of historic buildings is proposed to help them occupied. But from architectural character viewpoint, preservation is the name of an effort. Is the yellow we sort of affectionately call that parcel a grand piano lot. Is there is a development opportunity that could be an infill that would generate some density, but overall network of streets and its character are being preserved. There you can see some darker streets. This is slated or proposed improvement to road work, mostly aimed at safety and ease of navigation. But some of the recommendations of paving and improving Academy Street and making overall approach into the city, entry into the city, ceremonial, and announcing where the city starts and stops. We'll look a little more at it. So, is from viewpoint, this is our historic core. So those blobs are not buildings. We are not proposing buildings. This is the master plan. What we are doing is trying with our digital twin to analyze and illustrate for you potential bulk of the development. And the envelope, what it simply means that it is a cage, if you will, through which the building cannot break its maximum possible extent of the structure. So you can see from the grand piano lot is the white box is what would be permissible per today's code. And some increase in height is denoted with this goldish color. And there are, this is some renderings of the main street that we are proposing to convert to pedestrian mall, not in its entirety, but the block to Dostal Alley and some unifying paving patterns and maintaining the buildings, obviously, but also the street furnishings and streetscape with some better engineering lines and some more unified paving patterns. This is that using metaphor of a carpet being unrolled with the border and then some infill in three colors. And then as you come to the end of Main Street and in front of Belvedere Theater to creating ceremonial entry point that will make you pause and park and hopefully come to gives you a reason to stop and explore the city. The basic idea was and continues to be to try to stop folks from driving through Central City and continuing on to Black Hawk without knowing what Central City has to offer, what exists in here. So you can see the roundabout with hopefully some sculptural elements, and then proposed envisioned parking and some linear elements to enter the main street and plaza with outdoor eating and music and other activities, beer garden type of activities in front of the partially renovated theater. So, and then as you transition from the main street to Main Street Plaza, landscape vocabulary and streetscape transitions as well, using some uh, organic contemporary elements that will be repeated elsewhere in the city with paving and planters and seating that is pay homage to beautiful nature of Central City is what we are trying to propose. So this is a quick floor plan or site plan of the historic core that shows you the pedestrian area, the main plaza, the sunken garden of the uh, roundabout, and then uh, parking and linear art program, outdoor art program that will enchant the space. So those are some of the renderings and some of preliminary studies of both existing buildings and proposed infrastructure. Is That's the view of Main Street looking toward Main Street Plaza, and this is a bridge from the parking and potential new resort to the plaza and outdoor activities. Uh, Gregory Gulch is another area of change. Again, there are public meetings and there is live application for that resort. And this is arguably our locomotive of change that will provide a lot of funds and flexibility to implement some of the proposed improvements and proposed revisions, but on the scale of master plan, not the building itself. That blue area that encompasses the resort is an area of change, and it's Gregory Gulch Gaming Village that was identified as such that is identified in the current regulatory documents, and its development is anticipated and, in my mind, very much welcome. Those are some of the public areas in the vicinity of Gregory Gulch, and that project will give us a chance to develop linear park, develop palette of landscape material, develop urban furnishings that will be applicable to all the areas of Central City outside of central business district outside of the area where we are presently sitting and immediately adjacent. And you can see some early hand sketches we did, and then you can see some envelopes that are not identical, but substantially similar to what is proposed for the PUD. And those are, again, some early renderings of linear park that shows diversion of the gulch water, incorporating it with rocks and boulders and landscaping, and meandering, snaking the walkways so they are less steep than if you were climbing what is geologically well over 8% slope. So Mammoth Hill, again, we are sort of jumping around the city, but it's a lovely area with some potential for development. Again, at this point, timeline is uncertain, but maintaining a significant green element, maintaining the some established walkways, and try to preserve, celebrate some ruins, and then creating the area for light commercial that would be also available for educational, multifamily and single family residential is what we are envisioning on the hill.
Alexander, before you move on, can you go back to that slide?
Go back.
Just so everybody knows where that's located, that'd be across the street here, Mammoth Hills up here. The little roundabout at the bottom would be approximately where the Central City sign is that honors the women miners. Okay. Just to give you a point of reference where this is located.
And some of those questions, again, it's going to be easier to look at overall map and point and shoot. Okay, this is T-Lot and Quartz Hill behind it. So you can see T-Lot right here. That little triangle is the building in which we are sitting right now. So can you see it? See the little, this is City Hall. So T-Lot is right there. And then the large mountain behind it is a rock pile, is a quartz hill. So this, all that green denotes area of change, and we are calling it a Quartz Hill Village. It's a working name, it's not a final name, but this is a very important area. So this is where our highway, parkway, is delivering us. So that roundabout will be your first point of arrival into Central City. This is where signage is today. But what our proposal is to improve, widen, and work on the slope of the existing street. And then you have a roundabout on one end, and then the second roundabout that you were just looking at as part of Main Street Plaza. It is located on the other end. And there is increase in density that is being proposed. And that increase in density is stepped. So you have higher structures that would be permissible on the back portion of the lot. And then they would be stepping down toward the main street, and there is a significant transition between the height maintaining the nose at roughly 35 feet to be in line with current zoning, and then increasing to the area that is farther removed and creating keystone and entrance into the city. And then we'll talk about other elements such as proposed pedestrian bridge and outdoor area connecting in that same location. So this is the view from above of Quartz Hill with its development opportunity and other areas. So this is the pedestrian bridge we just talked about, and it is as we developed, hopefully, the Nevada Village on the west side of Nevada Street and Quartz Hill on the east side of Nevada Street, there will be replanting of some of the landscaping on the what would be cleaned up Quartz Hill side, and creating a adventure walk. And adventure is designed for people of all abilities. It is for somebody who hopefully using a walker or an oxygen tank. It's very gentle, but it allows you to be in nature. Central City is blessed with beautiful mountainous environment, but it is not particularly easy to enjoy it. So creating some of the walkways and trails is part of it, and that bridge as a sign of arrival to the city will announce that you have entered the city of Central. The Academy Village is the next area, colloquially known as Greek lots. It's another area of change, of development, where higher density and increase in maximum height, not a very significant, but increase nevertheless, is being proposed. Marching on, that is the area around Boodle Mill and some incorporation of the areas that are currently not within the city to create critical mass for potential developers to be able to come and propose the changes. So this is Blake, I forgot the Winnipeg. All right. So this is our Winnipeg hill, and this is that is slated and will be slated for low density single family residential, maybe some duplexes. But reason it is colored, there is some incorporation or increase of the city boundaries that may be desired will be welcomed by the developer to create cohesive single family developments. And so now we are coming to what do those numbers add up to? And this is a chart, and those colors in the chart relate to the villages we just looked at. And if you add it all together in single family equivalent in terms of dwelling units, the overall build out, and again, it's going to happen over decades, not immediately, but what that plan would lead you to believe that the population will increase by about 3,000 souls. This includes hotel rooms, single family, multi-family, but it is fairly robust and forward-looking plan. And this is more detailed or more straightforward, I guess. Single family equivalent calculation divided into quadrants of the building so you can see how much growth is expected over the years over the next 20 years or so in this area. So the next chapter and master planning is a very synthetic exercise. So there are many lenses or many layers of information one has to analyze, look at, and review. So from the digital twin viewpoint, we are sort of putting different filters for it to yield information about various aspects of Central City. One of the aspects is multimodal connectivity, trails, pedestrian, public transportation, bicycles, a number of others not necessarily listed here. That is another much simplified diagram that shows you those dashed lines. Hopefully you can see them. This is pedestrian connectivity, and it connects back to Maryland Mountain park, but it also would provide, we would hope, connection between various parts of the city, as well as those little stars. They denote point of interest within the village. So each village has its own place, point, or multiple points of interest, and then you link them all. And then that little straight line is a proposed public transportation that takes form of pulse gondola. We'll talk about it, we'll look at it in a second. So those are various, you have your automobiles, you have public transit, you have first responders. Gary happened to be here. So is bicycles, pedestrian, recreational, and the gondola. And so all those modes of transportation is something that we are looking at carefully and making what I would hope pragmatic recommendations how to incorporate it into urban fabric. Hopefully, many of you are familiar with what Pulse Gondola is. It is similar to your gondola on a ski resort, but it's significantly more than twice less expensive. It is going horizontal, doesn't really describe it. There is a change in elevation, but it is going between various points, and it's relatively modest in operational costs, but connecting the very east of town, starting from as far out as Briggs Lot to the central business district, farther to Academy lots, would create immediate ability to navigate the city, create a lot of connectivity, and serve as not only tourist attraction, but also link to neighboring communities. So we've been working with the manufacturer of that equipment to get their engineering is not the right word, get their preliminary data incorporated into our digital twin so we can analyze it and show you how it could develop. 85% of Pulse gondolas are less than 15 years old. It's a very quickly developing and popularizing mode of public transit. There are 3 of them in the state of Colorado for those who visited. Royal Gorge is one. Snowmass Village is the second one. Is it? Actually, no, is Glenwood Springs. Is, am I right? Our based on the review of manufacturer, 200 people per hour with faster speed is what would be recommended for the city of Central. Sorry, I forgot the third place, so we'll verify it. Okay, Blake, I'm tired of listening to myself talk. So your turn. Why don't we switch?
All right, switch. Okay. I'm Blake Lasley. I'm the project manager for the master plan. I've been working with Alexander since 2008, so it's been a journey. All right, talking more about multimodal connectivity and transportation. There's a good reason for it to expand beyond just cars. You're looking at infographics from the Colorado Tourism Office based on their research. And effectively, the point of this is, if you can see down here in the corner, reasons for day trips in Colorado, 3% are for casinos. 3% of day trips in Colorado are for the purpose of visiting gaming and going to casinos. Now, if you get back, you march up the list, you've got 12% are for outdoor activities and 14% for touring. So by diversifying that focus just in transportation, right, you're opening up a lot more opportunity to catch a lot more visitors. So there are some really interesting opportunities. This one I talked about with Jeff, looking at a downhill bike mountain. Okay, so you take a regular ski lift up the top, you get off the top, and then you rip down the course. They're looking at that at, help me if I get the name right, Pubiec Mountain? Pubiec? Puwabec, thank you so much. It reads differently, certainly. But as you can imagine, it's just kind of a single lift up to the top, get off with your bike and take runs down. Another opportunity for biking is a more urban park. This example is for Ruby Hill Park in Denver. What's pretty incredible about it is it's only on 7 acres, so it's not particularly large, but it's always packed, and they can convert it to in the wintertime they blow snow and they convert it to a snowboard rail yard. And so if you can look up here in the upper right, that's all the storage needed for them to have a snowboard park effectively right in town. Okay, moving on to historic preservation. I imagine some folks here care quite a bit about that. It's from everyone I've talked to in town, this is a really big deal. There are, we have a kind of a great deal of experience. Alexander's been working for a long time. Peter Arnold to my right has made a substantial portion of his career working in preservation. And I have a few projects under my belt too. So we're going to talk about goals. We're going to talk about the national standards. Then we're going to talk about local regulations. Then we're going to kind of dive into some case studies for districts and then to assets. There is some other information that we just won't be able to get to due to time constraints, but those will be posted with this presentation on the city site when it gets loaded. Okay, let's talk about goals. So we've kind of gone over a lot of areas of change, right? Let's talk about what we really want to keep, right? And that's it's the character of your historic district, and it's as many of the historic assets as we can. Part of how we do that, part of how we understand the character, right, is knowing what is new and what is historic. So our imagery, our concepts, and our approaches that we take use contrast to do that. So rather than kind of have a new building that mimics, right, an old style, right, that was present historically, we make it different so it's very clear as to what the historic asset is. As far as the buildings go, your assets, recommend as in-depth of a study of current conditions as possible. The information that was available to me was from 2015, and that was the survey information that was done by the university, and I believe it was taken. It wasn't a close look. I believe the surveyor was kind of assessing as best they could from the public right away. So they're standing at the street, taking their best look and recording that information. So the more information we can get about the historic buildings in town, the better off everybody's going to be, so we can know how to best address them. Part of what we have going on is Central City is in an extreme environment, extreme weather environment. That the wear and tear on the buildings here is substantially more than it is just down the hill in Denver. it's 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 a heavy lift. It's almost abusive buildings, unfortunately, and that costs a lot of money to maintain. And I guess finally, the last goal is that we want these buildings occupied. There are a great number of vacancies, and the best way to maintain a building is to use it. So we're looking at the historic district map. Sure, a lot of you folks are familiar with this. The gold in the map is the historic district, and then the red hashed is the gaming boundary. And then thing of note, and I'm sure most of you know, the gaming district was created in large part to support the historic district, right? So the funds from gaming, right, are distributed, in equal measure as to how they're earned, equal give or take, right, to take care of the buildings around it. So part of the focus in gaming in what we're proposing will go to support those buildings. You're all familiar with your local landmarks. Okay, so let's talk about conditions. So this goes back to the 2015 survey. This is the information I have. And there was one in 2023 that hit 25 buildings. So it wasn't comprehensive by any means. Basically, as we march back in time to 1961 with the initial application, you're losing assets. So that's buildings that were designated historic and contributing to no longer being contributing due to conditions or their historic integrity, which basically means how accurate they are to the period of significance. This is when I talk. So I did some research about annual maintenance. Very exciting information. What that yielded was that in kind of the harsh environment that you're in, you're looking at probably $7 to $15 a square foot to maintain buildings annually. And that what that kind of builds up to is that you've got roughly 4 to 6% of your building's replacement value every year that needs to go to maintenance to properly maintain those historic buildings. That is not a small chunk of change.
To make it a little more personal, our office is in the building that was constructed in 1886, and our annual costs are slightly higher than $15 per foot per year. Now, our taxes in Denver are significantly higher, but we know firsthand what it takes to maintain and preserve old historical structures.
So the surveys yield out a number of maps uses analysis tools. So part of the one we're looking at is the condition map. So it takes the buildings in town, looks at their condition from the roadside, and you've got one of three. You can be good, fair, or poor. This was done back in 2015. I have a very strong suspicion that if we take a real in-depth, qualified look, things wouldn't be looking so green. So let's talk about standards a little bit. Trying to deal with a district and understand what it means to be a historic district and what is the appropriate approach to maintaining that, there's not a lot of information out there, and certainly not as much as there are given to individual buildings, just because there's so many more buildings. But there are recommendations. So we're looking at a snip from the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties, last published in 2017. To sum that up, right? Maintaining a district, you want to identify, retain, and preserve the historic character of the setting. That's all of the direction given, largely. As we get into, sorry, there we go. As we look more towards buildings, there are more specific treatments that are recommended or not recommended. There are not rules, there are recommendations, right? So the historic properties and the assets, those are private property. So the government can't say you have to do this or no, you can't do that. They leave regulation largely to certified local governments, which you are. With the understanding that you know they've agreed that Central City, as an example, is qualified to maintain their district, and that the regulations they propose support that. But largely, the role of the district is to provide stability, to stabilize, protect, and maintain your buildings and landscape features. That's not necessarily happening well across the board. Some assets are well maintained. You've got your crown jewels, and those are supported, and those are doing well. And then you can look at other buildings within the district, and they're really struggling. And there's a lot of reasons for that. You get into certainly economic conditions and weather conditions, and when those collide without occupancy, you just end up with deterioration, and there's not really another option for that. As we get into buildings, there are multiple ways to do it. The recommendations are fairly clear, though, is that the recommended approach is to differentiate your new construction from your historic, right? So what that means is when you're building, you're not copying an old style, right? When you're adding on to a building, you want to be clear what that addition is versus what the historic piece is. I like that. Okay, it's one before I move on. So I've read through the current design guidelines. From what I've seen, the guidelines require a replication of a historical style. So as we get into look at a couple of the buildings in town, we've got a Victorian styled building, right, that was erected in 1989, right? As I come and visit and I look up at the hill, I don't know that's not historic, right? So I can't tell what's special and what's not just by looking at it. Same with across the street, is that there we go. Just at the end cap, that's a new building. It just does not have historic integrity. Now it looks like the rest of Main Street, but it's not from the period of significance. And I don't know the exact treatments that were there, but just from an eye test, this is it's pretending to be part of the historic fabric when it really isn't. So we're going to talk about a couple case studies, and I'm going to speed up because I know we're pressed for time. So we're going to look at historic districts, and then Peter's going to talk about some historic buildings. Our historic districts. Are all you familiar with Larimer Square in Denver? So that's a historic district. That started when they built the ballpark back in the mid 90s. That part of town used to be Skid Row, and now it's vibrant, it's healthy. There are a lot of business going well, and it's well preserved. So you can see kind of pictures in the lower right. It is clear what is the historic part of town, and then it transitions to the rest of the city. It is a pedestrian mall now, so they put up some bollards, and so cars where they used to go through all the time, now it's kind of wide open and it's pretty active at night. Next case study is in Macau. So we're going across the ocean. What I found pertinent about this one is that the district, as they set it up, so this is a UNESCO site, right? So UNESCO World Heritage, it doesn't get to be much of a bigger deal as far as historic preservation goes. The way they've treated the district, if you can see the blue and red dots within the little map, those are the protected assets within the district. And then the pink around it is a buffer zone, so that they use to transition to the rest of the city. So what that looks like is that you've got, 16th century Portuguese architecture, right, that transitions sort of in a similar scale and mass over to the buffer zones, which are modern era architecture, and then it goes out even further to Las Vegas style, the Cotai Strip. Okay, finally, we're going to look at Old Montreal and the Old Port. So I think the takeaway from this is that you absolutely can maintain the look and feel of your historic district. You can maintain the relationship of the buildings to the setting, and still embrace development within your town. Okay, gonna hand it back off to you.
Okay, so Peter Arnold is a British architect. He will introduce himself. He moved to the United States a little over 20 years ago, and we have a good fortune partnering with Peter over many of those years. And he worked on a number of probably the most significant historical buildings in England. So he will ask Peter to share his experience.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexander. That's a good introduction. Just before I go into those case studies, just a little bit about myself and what I've been doing over the years. I ran a practice in central London called Arnold and Boston, me being the Arnold. And we started our practice doing refurbishment and restoration work for London boroughs in their housing program. And that moved on over the years till we got a major project for London Underground, the tube. I don't know how many of you ever used the tube, but in the mid-80s, there was a very bad fire in the underground at King's Cross Station. And the fire burned the anti-graffiti paint that had been built in or put into the stations following the graffiti problem. And that caught fire, and the toxic fumes that came up killed, I think, 38 people. It was a disaster that won't ever be forgotten. But we were appointed, my firm were appointed, to get rid of this anti-graffiti paint right throughout the tube system. And we had to survey the stations at sort of 3 o'clock in the morning when the power was off. And it was a preservation contract because all the details of many years of the London Underground, some of them were important historical details because the system was built in the 19th century. So that was a major first in terms of preservation. When I came over to this country, it's 25 years now, I very soon worked for Alexander, and we have been working together ever since, one project after another. Now, in terms of the city here, I've produced three case studies, which shows how my experience and my knowledge may be of help to the way things happen here. There are examples, these three studies, of how one may achieve the successful regeneration of Central City. Current regulations push towards, as Blake mentioned, push towards requiring new construction to mimic historical precedent. There is, of course, a place for reproduction, which I will refer to in the first case study, but I would like to support the value of aesthetic diversity, meaning contrast, creating harmony and compatibility in the design. It should integrate contemporary architecture within Central City's total building fabric as a living city. So these regulations, they may need to be changed or be more flexible to enable this to happen. Although, as Blake said, they're not obligatory, they're recommendations, as you would happen to think. These three case studies include two by my own London practice, Arnold and Boston, and one by Foster and Partners, who many of you will have heard of, very large firm in London. And I'll start with one of ours, the British Museum, and that's the panel over there, second in from the right, is designed, that building is in 1845 by Sir Robert Smirke and his brother, the architects. It's in fully classical style. And fortunately, or unfortunately, it was seriously bombed by the Luftwaffe in 1941. But fortunately, after the artifacts had been removed, so there's very little loss in the artifacts in the museum. But after the war, temporary roofs, concrete slabs were put over the bombed areas. They were inserted to protect the elements until we, as a firm, were commissioned to recreate the original gallery roof lights, lantern lights, lay lights, coffered and molded ceilings, and other important features in the central saloon and the reading room, which was then the British Library. So this was a conservation and recreation job. We incorporated modernized environmental services for the whole museum from a new energy center, and our work was made possible by a fine collection of pre-blitz drawings. This is very interesting, drawings and photographs taken around about the beginning of the 20th century, which we were able to use in order to recreate these galleries. And Foster and Partners followed on our project with a glazed roof over the central court. You can see the central court in the middle on the screen now. That glass roof was put over, and it's actually an interesting example of an authentic reproduction in terms of the galleries and their roofs, created with a contemporary design right adjacent to it, and the roof by Foster's. So it's a combination of preservation and new construction. The second case study, if we got that one, is involved, the HAC stands for the Honourable Artillery Company, which is actually the world's oldest active military body. And back from the 15th century, I understand. And it's located in the city of London, right very close to the financial centre of the city. And it looks over the artillery ground, which is a 5-acre piece of open space in the middle of the city. Originally an archery training ground, but in 1666, it became a burial ground for 5,000 plague victims, and cannot, by royal charter, be built for another 600 years. The Honourable Artillery Company consists of Armoury House, being a 3-story, very staid brick Georgian. On the top left on that sketch indicates Armoury House. It's the architect is unknown for that building, but there's an adjacent building is Finsbury Barracks, a flamboyant stone castle-like Victorian building with turrets and castellations. It's not very clear on those drawings where that happens. And it's designed by Joseph Jennings in 1857. And interesting enough, Rudolf Hess was held there during World War II. I don't know whether people were familiar with him. He was Hitler's sidekick who came to try and sue for peace. Anyhow, we were commissioned by the Honourable Artillery Company to design a link building between these two very different historical listed structures. And we found a contemporary solution with a strong support of a large and varied group of interested parties who we had to consult with. They included people like the Royal Fine Arts Commission, City of London planners, Islington planners, the Museum of London, who had held a watching brief over the construction. A spade couldn't come out of the ground without them inspecting what was there, because they were thinking of historical artifacts in the ground. So English Heritage were involved, obviously the Honourable Artillery Company, and the MOD, which is the Ministry of Defence, equivalent to the DOD here. They're the funding agents. And our contemporary design for the link building, as you can see on that slide, it was considered by all the parties, I'm proud to say, as being a good neighbour to either side, forming a hinge-like articulated link between these two very different buildings. We did so with an articulated stone-clad elevation with turreted stairs and, interesting enough, a feature being Henry VIII's armour, the Greenwich armour, being incorporated in that design. There's a harmonious group facing the artillery ground, forming a powerful composition overlooking a popular and unique event space in central London. And these group consultations were uniquely rewarding. I say that because they were difficult, but they came out very well. The final case study involves the Reichstag in Berlin, which was not one of our projects. That was a Norman Foster project. As the seat of government, it was designed by...
Can I interrupt you for
Yeah.
a quick second? This is Peter, slightly younger, being introduced to Queen Elizabeth. So the project was well received, national.
She asked the questions to which I've been giving you answers. These are really from the questions I was faced by the Queen when she came and looked around the completed building project. She's a very interested person and a wonderful person too. And the final case study involves, thanks by the way, Alexander, for putting that little thing in for the Queen there. The final case study involves the Reichstag in Berlin. As a seat of government, it was designed by Paul Wallop in 1884 in a multitude of styles, neo-Renaissance, Baroque, classical, all the styles. It was a hodgepodge, and it was burnt down 1 month after Hitler became Chancellor in 1933. That was later known as an excuse for creating his dictatorial powers. Anyhow, the building lay derelict until reunification of Germany in 1990, following which Foster and Partners won a design competition and construction that was completed in 1999. Only the surviving 19th century external walls were retained. The interior and the central dome were rebuilt to an entirely contemporary style design, creating a wonderful example of contemporary architecture in historic context. I think these projects differ significantly from each other, but their aims were the same: the creation of a rich building fabric of contrasting styles and recognizing contemporary design in historical settings. Examples that Central City may find inspirational in the way forward. Thank you for that intro.
So we are 64 minutes and now into our 25-minute presentation. So Jeff maybe will take questions from the online folks. And to reduce our case studies to 3 and 3 took probably longer than to assemble the presentation. We started with many, many more examples. And it's a complex, urban planning is very complex and very rewarding undertaking. It's tough to get it into one public meeting, but we are hoping to continue dialogue over the next 9 months or however long we are going to be working on the comprehensive plan. Thank you. You've been a great, very patient audience. So we'll be talking to you individually or collectively in a minute here.
Yeah, before we do that, if there are any questions online, put those in the chat. I will repeat your question, and one person here on the team will give you an answer. So I'll give you a couple minutes to think of questions. Anything else you want to add? Well, any ad lib?
The answer is
any
yes,
humor?
but should I?
Any Ukrainian humor?
I'm a humorless individual. So it is a lot of information. Is from road network to open space to density increases to maintaining to changing pulse gondola. It's difficult to present and much more difficult to consume all that in one sitting. So and Jeff mentioned it at the beginning, all this data is being posted to centralcity.app website. There is ability to not only fill out questionnaire, but to leave your comments, item number 16, in your own format. Today, you are welcome to talk to us. You are welcome to pick up little sticker, which are available at all the station. Write down anonymously or with your name what you would like to say, negative, positive, or otherwise. And stay in contact, stay engaged. Probably in conclusion, what I would like to say is that in one of our public meetings, I don't even remember which one, but after we presented, there was applaud from the audience. And it's not a testimony to the presentation or I don't think the design. What I believe is happening within the community understands by and large that the challenge is real, that economic vitality, it's not something that's nice to have, that without it, communities disappear. And visitation to your lovely museum is, what did Jim was telling me, something like quarter of what it was 20 years ago. And that bringing people and bringing various generations and bringing excitement to the city, looking into the future, is what comprehensive planning is about. Thank you very much.
I've received one question. The outdoor dining area, which I'm assuming is closing of Main Street, what will be done during the winter? I know we talked about building snow forts, but were there any other good ideas that we came up with?
Good, I don't know, but okay, so here is the real answer. I'll try to do it quickly. Is we are blessed or cursed to work on number of ski resorts and number of alpine areas. Some of them are in North America, some in the Far East and Europe. And what you try to create as a community is a four-season destination, not something that thrives in the summer and then goes down in the winter. It's not a way to survive and prosper. So outdoor activities in the ideal world, are structured in such a way that you have functionality, albeit limited functionality, in alpine environment. So canopy that is housing heat lamps, or that is that has some areas that could be converted into four-season locations, is what we have in mind. That was what Bill Porter calls a word salad. Hopefully, that will we can elaborate, I guess, with images in the future. What else?
That appears to
Any
be
more
it.
questions? So let's break into three groups. Peter in the corner, Blake at the villages, and Jeff and I will stay here and hope to.
I don't see any other questions.
Something about the Central City app.
Oh, we responded to that.
Just want to make sure you saw it.
Yep. All right. For those online, we're going to end the session. So it's going to get a little loud in here. But encourage you to stay involved in the process. Feel free to contact me, reach out to me. Be glad to talk to you. But centralcity.app is the homepage where you can find most of the information about the project. Again, we'll be meeting in 2 weeks, August 18th, 6 p.m. in here with another enlightening presentation from the OS architecture team.